Hi there, my name's Wanda Short, and I am currently in the juvenile delinquency class with Dr. Richard Warch, Jr., over at Florida Southwestern State College. And this is my presentation for our final project, which is on the 7 different essays on juvenile delinquency. So first off, to understand what juvenile delinquency is, the overview would briefly be it's anytime a minor child, and the age of a child actually varies from state to state, but it's typically under 17 or 18 years old. A juvenile delinquency is defined by a minor child exhibiting either an illegal act or antisocial behavior that is beyond parental control. This has been a problem since the medieval times, and with more parents having to work outside of the home and not being around to monitor or nurture their children, it became necessary for the courts to devise a doctrine called parens patriae, which allowed them to actually step in and assume responsibilities for the wayward youth. There's many different layers and levels of delinquency. First of all, to understand the layers and levels, you first need to understand what the causes are of juvenile delinquency. There's a lot of interesting debate about this, but pretty much you can look at environment of the child, what they're growing up in, if they're nurtured, if they're not, if there's violence in the home, if there's parents or other people in the home that are also in the court system. You look at abuse, whether it's emotional or physical or sexual. These types of abuses are often seen in children and youth that are in the justice system. Also, learning and mental disabilities certainly play a part in the causation of juvenile delinquency. And as well, personality and the ability or lack thereof to handle stress and contain the pressures of the environment also dictate how one child from one family may pull themselves out of the bad situation, and yet another child in that same family and circumstances succumbs to it. The public school system has a major role. They're in regards to juvenile delinquency. The school system is in a unique and powerful position of having access to children before they become offenders, and can be a major part of the prevention and identifying high-risk kids. Schools strive to maintain a safe environment for kids, and the programs that are usually available can make a huge difference in kids' lives. Unfortunately, not all schools are created equal, and those that need these programs the most, the ones in the lower income neighborhoods that house the most highest risk kids, unfortunately a lot of times they don't have many of these programs, and that's a real problem. Public school systems, they strive to have a safe environment. Certainly these kids that are coming out of a hostile or unsafe environment can look to the school system to provide them that. Again, in some of the hardest, most lowest income areas, this is not the case, and the schools are unable to provide a safe environment. Counseling and mentoring programs can be very, very beneficial. So the public school system can actually have a positive or a negative influence on children and whether or not they become delinquent. But I will say, as with any influence a kid has in their lives, the strongest and the most impactful influence is always going to come from their peer group. This can be negative or positive pressure. Parents may lay the foundation for a child, and if that foundation is not nurturing or abusive or absent, then the child who is struggling, they're trying to find the right way, but they don't have anyone that has taught them the foundation of what is right and what is wrong. And that's hopefully when the school system would pick up the slack, that they would enter in and kind of take those children at an early age, pre-K, and so even 3 and 4 years old, and hopefully nurture them in ways that their own families were unable to. But surely peers are going to be the most common source of influence in a child's life. The juvenile court system. Once the court is the accountability aspect of determining the fate for the juvenile offender, with the goal of controlling and correcting the bad behavior. There's some similarities and some differences to the adult court system. Some of the similarities would include that both adults and kids are Mirandized. There's the proof beyond a reasonable doubt. There's plea bargaining allowed, and they could have sentencing to a secure lockdown, and also probation or parole obligations. Some differences would include that juveniles, unlike adult offenders, can actually be arrested for non-criminal acts. And the court hearings are very informal, and the parents are extremely involved. If the parents are around, they're very involved. Also, another major difference is that the records are generally sealed at the age of adulthood, where with an adult, it's on their record pretty much forever. Incarceration is just basically a disposition for the child, whether it's a secure lockdown facility, a group home, a day residential program, could be boot camp, or even house arrest. There's those different types. There's pros and cons to all of these different types, but basically one of the biggest positives or reasons to incarcerate an offender is to protect the citizens and the public. But also it protects the child from unsafe behavior. It allows for intense diagnostics and treatment, can allow for healing and counseling of the underlying issues that might not be able to be really dug into unless they're incarcerated in a safe and secure type facility. The cons would be statistics have shown that a lot of these non-violent youth that are incarcerated turn around and come out of the incarceration and then either increase the violence of their offenses, but a lot of times they are going back and getting back into the system, so they're really not being rehabilitated. Another problem with incarcerating a child is now you're putting them in a unique group of peers who are also in similar situations, could be in worse situations, that could influence them and sort of romanticize the whole offender type lifestyle, and that's definitely a problem. Rehabilitation programs, the main goal of the juvenile justice system is to help reform a child and allow them to live a normal, productive, positive life. So the rehabilitation programs are crucial. They're absolutely critical to this part of the process. Just taking a child and housing them in a safe environment and then cutting them loose 18 months later is not going to do a bit of good unless there's some sort of rehabilitation involved. There's 4 basic models of rehabilitation. The rehabilitation model looks to why a child became an offender. The justice model punishes and lets the victims of the crimes feel justice was done. The crime control model, it's interested in keeping the peace and the public safe. And while the balance and restorative model desires to help the child take ownership and learn from their mistakes and to develop some skill set to become a productive part of society. That's pretty much my presentation with the slides. I've got the sources here on the next 4 pages that correlate to my research paper. But basically, that is pretty much my final project, and I thank you, Dr. Warch. This has been a very, very interesting class. I kind of went into it not really expecting it to be very enjoyable, but I got to tell you, the videos that you've chose and the assignments really were powerful, and I'll tell you, my heart has been stirred, not only broken by just seeing the statistics of just the kids that are in the system, but it's also kind of spurred me on to see, what I can do locally, to maybe be a part of the either preventative side or the, the healing side of it. So I thank you for that. And I look forward to summer sessions. I've got 2 more of your classes, so we'll see you this summer.